It was supposed to be a normal night, just a quiet drive home after a long shift, but something felt off. You ever get that weird feeling that something's watching you even when you're alone in the car? That was me. Midnight, empty road, trees on both sides like tall shadows, leaning in. I remember checking the clock, 12:03 a.m. My headlights were the only lights for miles. Radio was off. No music, no voices, just the hum of the engine and the sound of tires rolling over wet pavement. Then I saw her. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, there she was, standing by the side of the road, alone. She wasn't waving. She wasn't even moving, just standing still. I slowed down, rolled the window a little. "Do you need help?" I called out. She didn't answer. She looked lost. Her hair was dark, long, wet from the rain. A pale dress sticking to her skin. No jacket, no bag. She couldn't have been more than 20. Something inside me told me to drive on, but I didn't. I pulled over, unlocked the door. She got in slowly, didn't speak, didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, like she knew exactly where she was going. I cleared my throat, tried to break the silence. "Where do you need to go?" Still nothing, not even a nod. That's when I noticed it. The air inside the car turned cold, way too cold. I turned up the heat, didn't help. I looked at her, still not a word, still staring. I told myself she was just scared, maybe in shock. Maybe she had been through something awful. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. And the night was just beginning. Want to know what happened next? Keep watching, because what she did next still haunts me. You said, I kept driving. The road stretched on, dark and silent, like it was holding its breath. She still hadn't said a single word, just sat there, stiff, staring out the windshield. No blinking, no shifting, not even the sound of her breathing. I glanced at her again, trying not to make it obvious. Her hands were folded in her lap, so still they almost looked fake, like part of a mannequin. I forced a smile, trying to break the tension. "You don't talk much, huh?" "Nothing." I laughed a little, nervous. "Yeah, that's okay. Not everyone likes small talk." She didn't move, didn't even look at me. And then I noticed something weird. The rearview mirror. I looked into it, and I couldn't see her. She was right beside me, I knew that. I could feel her presence. But in the mirror, empty seat. I blinked, looked back over at her directly. Still there, still staring. My chest tightened. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, like trying to swallow smoke. The road ahead curved, and for a second, I thought I saw something move in the trees. A shape, but it was gone before I could focus on it. I asked again, this time softer. "Are you okay?" Her head turned, slowly. Finally, she looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were dark, but not just in color, like looking into a well with no bottom. And still, no words, just that stare, cold, like she was looking right through me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My knuckles went white. Then, without moving her lips, I swear I heard something. Faint, like a whisper. Not in the air, but inside my head. A single word. Home. But whose voice was it? Because it sure didn't sound like hers. And that's when I realized I had no idea where I was going anymore. The road I'd driven 100 times before looked completely unfamiliar. Something was leading me somewhere, and I was no longer in control. You said, I should have turned around. Every instinct in me screamed it, but my hands, they stayed on the wheel, like something was guiding me, or holding me there. The road twisted deeper into the woods now. No houses, no lights, no signs, Just that endless black ribbon stretching forward, eating the headlights. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was letting my imagination mess with me. But I kept thinking about that word. Home. Whose home? Where was I taking her? I stole another glance at her. Still staring ahead. Still no blinking. Not once. I looked at the gas gauge. Half a tank. Of course. I hadn't remembered it dying. I didn't even remember hearing the low battery warning. That chill was still in the air too, no matter how high I cranked the heat. And the windows? They were starting to fog up, except for hers. That window stayed perfectly clear, like she wasn't even breathing. I had to say something. Had to break whatever spell this was. Listen, if this is some kind of prank, you're really freaking me out. She turned again, slower this time, and gave me the faintest smile. But it wasn't comforting. It was the kind of smile people give right before something terrible happens. Then she lifted her hand, pointed forward, a sharp turn in the road, a narrow dirt path I'd never noticed before. It wasn't on any map. No lights, no signs, just trees, thick and black and waiting. I slowed the car, looked at her. She nodded once, still not speaking. I don't know why, but I turned. The tires crunched over gravel and dead leaves. Branches scraped the sides of the car like fingernails on metal. I felt sick, like something bad was getting closer. Something I couldn't see yet, but that knew I was coming. I didn't know it then, but that road would change everything. And it was the last place I ever should have gone. You said, the second my tires hit that dirt road, the air felt different. Heavier, like I was sinking into something. The trees closed in tight, branches forming a tunnel above us. No stars, no moonlight, just shadows pressing against the windshield. I glanced at her again, still silent, still staring. Her hands were now resting on the door, fingers barely touching the handle. Like she was waiting, like she knew exactly where we were. I didn't. I'd lived in this area my whole life, but I had never seen this road before. The farther we went, the more wrong everything felt. No animals, no wind, not even the sound of the engine seemed normal anymore. It was like the car was being pulled, not driven. Like it was moving on its own. I tried to speak, to say something, anything. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My throat locked up, like I wasn't allowed to talk anymore. And then she moved. Not much, just her head. She turned and looked at me again. And this time, her lips parted, like she was about to say something. But instead, she reached out and touched the dashboard, right where the glove box was. Her fingers barely brushed it, and suddenly, the radio turned on. Static, but violent. I jumped in my seat, reached to turn it off, but the knob wouldn't budge. And under the static, I heard something. Voices. Twisting. Crying. Whispering. Layered over each other. Then one voice cut through it all. A man's voice. She never made it home. And then, silence. Radio dead again. She pulled her hand back, rested it in her lap, and turned away, like nothing had happened. I wanted to stop the car, get out, but I didn't, because up ahead, through the trees, I saw something, a house, falling apart, and somehow, I knew that's where she wanted to go. And worse, I knew I was going to take her there. The house appeared like a shadow from the past, hidden behind twisted trees and overgrown weeds, leaning slightly to one side, like time itself had tried to bury it. Wood rotted, windows cracked, front door hanging open just enough to say, "Come in if you dare." I hit the brakes. The car stopped with a soft crunch over gravel and dead leaves. The engine ticked quietly in the cold. She didn't move, didn't even blink. I looked at her. Her face was calm, too calm. "You live here?" I finally asked, even though I knew the answer was no. Nobody could live here. Not anymore. Turned to me again, slowly, and for the first time, she opened her mouth, but nothing came out. No voice, just air. She looked down at the door handle, then back at me, like she was asking for permission to go. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what was right anymore. So I just gave a slight nod, and she opened the door. The sound it made, like rusted metal crying out. Chirp. She stepped out into the cold. I hadn't noticed that before. Her feet made no sound on the gravel. She walked slowly toward the house, each step like a page turning in a book I wasn't ready to finish. And then, halfway to the front porch, she stopped and turned to look at me, not with a stare this time, but something else, a kind of sadness, a deep, aching sadness. And then she vanished, just like that. No sound, no warning. 1 second she was standing there. The next, the air was empty. I sat frozen, gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding so loud I thought it might crack my chest open. I jumped out of the car, ran to the spot where she had been. Nothing, just silence, and cold. The house door creaked again, but no one was there. No footprints, no wind, just me, a broken house, and the feeling that I had just witnessed something, not meant for the living. But this wasn't over, not even close. I stood there, staring at the house. My breath came out in shaky clouds, even though it wasn't that cold anymore. I should have left, gotten back in the car, driven away, never looked back. But something kept me there. Not curiosity, not fear. It was her. The way she looked at me before she vanished, like she needed something, like she couldn't leave until someone understood. I took a step toward the porch. The wood groaned under my weight. Another step, and another. The front door creaked open wider as I approached, like it had been waiting for me. The smell hit me first, and something faint underneath. Old flowers? Perfume? I couldn't tell. The hallway inside was dark, but moonlight spilled through a broken window, casting strange shapes on the floor. I called out, "Hello." No answer. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. Maybe that she'd appear again. Maybe that this was all just a dream, and I'd wake up laughing. But I didn't wake up. I walked deeper into the house. Each step kicked up dust that hadn't moved in years. There were old pictures on the wall, faces I didn't recognize, faded smiles and eyes that seemed to follow me. Then I saw it, a door at the end of the hallway, slightly open. The air around it felt colder, still, like it was sealed off from time. I don't know why I did it, but I reached out and pushed the door open. It creaked slowly, revealing a small room. Just one thing inside, a chair, facing the window. And on the window glass, a message, drawn in the fog, clear and unmistakable. "You brought me back." I staggered back, heartbeat racing. No one was in the room, just that chair, that message. But I could feel her. She was here, not beside me, inside the house, watching, waiting, and somehow, I had become part of her story, whether I wanted to or not. I wanted to run. Every part of me screamed to get out of that house. But I didn't move. The message on the window held me in place. "You brought me back." Back from where? Well, I wasn't anyone special. Just a guy on a late-night drive who made the mistake of stopping. I stepped closer to the window. The message was starting to fade, the fog slowly clearing from the glass like it never existed. I wiped the window with my sleeve. Nothing outside, just trees and darkness. I turned around to leave, but the hallway behind me was darker now, like the house had swallowed the light. And then, I heard it, a soft creak, not from the floor, from upstairs. One step, then another. Slow, heavy. I froze, every muscle locked, because I was sure I was alone in that house. Wasn't I? The steps continued, crossing the floor above me like someone was pacing back and forth. But I backed out of the room, kept my eyes on the ceiling, like I could see through it if I just stared hard enough. Another step, this time closer to the stairs. My breath caught in my throat. Whatever was up there, they were coming down. I turned, ready to run, and that's when I saw her, at the top of the stairs. Same pale dress, same long wet hair, but her face was different now. Not calm, not empty, so like she was remembering something too painful to carry. She lifted her hand slowly, pointed at me again, then pointed to the wall beside me. I turned, and there, covered in dust, was a picture frame, cracked glass, faded photo, but I recognized her, younger, smiling, and next to her, a man. I didn't know him, but he had his arm around her like they were close, maybe more than close. Something about his face. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen him before, but when I looked back up the stairs, she was gone. Only this time, I didn't feel alone. Not at all. I stood there staring at the photo. My hands were shaking. Not from fear exactly, more like realization. That man in the picture, his face, it was starting to come back to me. Not someone I knew, but someone I'd seen before. Recently, I turned the frame over, hoping for a name, a date, anything. And there was, scrawled on the back in faded ink, Lena and Mark, 2014. Lena. Her name was Lena. I whispered it out loud, and the room suddenly felt colder, like the walls heard me. A soft thump echoed upstairs. Then another. Not footsteps this time. Something falling. I backed into the hallway, eyes darting from the photo to the stairs. Lena. I called. I don't know why. Maybe I thought she'd answer now. But what I got instead was the front door, slamming shut. I jumped, ran to it, twisted the handle. But I hadn't locked it. I knew I hadn't. I tried again. Still locked. Then behind me, the floorboards creaked. Slow, like pressure, like someone was standing right behind me. Turned fast. No one. Just the photo, lying face down where I dropped it. I bent to pick it up, and that's when I saw it. A shadow. Not mine. Not cast by any light. Just there, on the floor beside me. Still, shaped like someone standing over me. But when I looked up, nothing. No one. Then I heard a whisper, right next to my ear. He lied. I froze. That voice. It wasn't mine. And it wasn't just inside my head this time. I looked back at the picture. Lena's face. Mark's arm around her. That sad look in her eyes when she vanished. That message on the window. You brought me back. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a memory. A secret. And now I was tangled in it. And I had no idea how deep it went. You said, I didn't want to go upstairs. Everything in me said don't. But I had to know. What happened to her? What did she mean? He lied? And why did she need me to bring her back? The stairs creaked with each step I took, louder than they should have been, like the house was warning me. Halfway up, the air changed again, thicker, harder to breathe, like I was climbing into someone else's memory. At the top, a hallway stretched out, wallpaper peeling, pictures crooked. The silence was heavy, like it had settled there for years. I walked slowly, eyes scanning every door. Most were shut, except one, barely open, the same room the sound had come from. I pushed the door gently, and it opened with a long, slow moan. It was a bedroom. Still, a broken lamp sat on the floor. Curtains ripped, fluttering gently though the window was shut. In the middle of the floor was a box. Wooden, covered in dust and deep scratches, like someone had tried to keep it closed or get it open. I knelt beside it, hesitated, then slowly lifted the lid. Inside were photographs, dozens, some torn, some burned at the edges, all of Lena, different places, different times. But in almost every single one, there was Mark, at first smiling. In one photo, Lena had a bruise on her cheek, barely visible, but there, in another, she wasn't smiling at all, just looking at the camera, expression flat, eyes hollow, and underneath the photos, a journal. I picked it up carefully. The pages yellowed and soft. Most were blank, except for one near the end, a short entry scribbled in rushed handwriting. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. He said no one would believe me. He said this house would keep my secret forever. My stomach turned. I looked back at the door and saw her, Lena, standing in the hallway, not flickering, not vanishing, just there, staring at the journal in my hand. And for the first time, I heard her voice. So, tired. Now you know. Then she pointed down the hall. One more door, still closed. And I knew, whatever was behind it, was the truth. The kind you don't come back from. The moment she pointed, the hallway grew darker. Not like the lights dimmed, like the shadows themselves thickened. I stood up slowly, still holding the journal. My hands were damp, my breath shaky. The box sat open behind me like a wound. Lena was gone again, but the direction was clear. That final door, it was old, warped, the paint peeled back like dry skin. No sound behind it, no light underneath. I hesitated. Whatever was on the other side, it wasn't just part of her story. It was the end of it, and maybe the beginning of mine. I reached for the doorknob, colder than anything I'd felt in that house. Like it hadn't been touched in years. I turned it slowly. The door creaked open. A single room, empty, except for one thing. A chair, facing the wall. And in that chair, a figure, still unmoving, like a shadow shaped like a man. I don't know how I knew, but I did. He wasn't breathing, wasn't alive, but he was there, and on the wall in front of him, written in something dark and dried, she told the truth. I stepped closer, couldn't help it, like I was being pulled. His face was pale, sunken, eyes closed, mouth slightly open, almost peaceful. If it wasn't for the rope still around his neck, it had snapped. Long ago. This wasn't murder. It was guilt. It was him punishing himself for what he did, for what he didn't believe, or maybe what he couldn't cover up. And in his lap, a photograph. Lena, one of the last I hadn't seen in the box. She looked strong in this one, bruised, but standing alone, facing the camera, eyes steady. There were words on the back, written in the same hand as the journal. You will not erase me. I turned away, my skin crawling. I could barely breathe. And then behind me, I heard that soft voice again. Thank you. Look back. Lena was standing in the doorway, smiling, but this time, truly smiling. And as the light around her grew, the house itself seemed to exhale. Boards settled, air warmed, like something had been released. She stepped back into the hall, glanced at Mark one last time, and vanished. Not like before. Not in fear. Not in sadness. She was free. And somehow, I knew, her story was finally over. But mine? It had just changed forever. You said, I stood there for a long time, in that quiet room, with the chair, the rope, and the ghost of a man who'd carried too much silence. Everything felt still now, like the house had gone to sleep. No more whispers, No more creaks. Even the shadows felt lighter. I left the room slowly, closing the door behind me, gently, like I didn't want to wake it. As I stepped into the hallway, something caught my eye on the floor. A key. Rusted, but it shimmered just slightly under the dim light. I picked it up. No tag, but somehow I knew what it was for. I headed back downstairs, feet light, like I was afraid of disturbing the calm. When I reached the living room, I noticed something I hadn't before. A trapdoor in the corner, hidden beneath a worn-out rug. The key felt heavier in my hand now, like it didn't want to be held. I knelt, pulled the rug back. Wooden slats, a small iron latch, and a keyhole. It fit perfectly. The lock clicked. And that's when the smell hit me, earthy, wet, like rain in a basement that had never dried. I lifted the door. Stairs led down into the dark. Of course, there was a cellar. Old houses like this always had secrets buried underneath. I grabbed my phone, flicked on the flashlight, and stepped down. Each step echoed. The deeper I went, the louder it got. Not just my steps, but a sound underneath them, dripping, like water from a broken pipe, or something else. The air was damp, walls made of stone. Moss crept along the edges. And then, I reached the bottom, a small room, almost like a vault. And in the center, a trunk, black metal, chains still wrapped around it. But they were broken, rusted through, like someone had tried to keep whatever was inside from ever coming out. I moved closer. My flashlight flickered. Twice. Then steadied. The trunk lid was cracked open. Just barely. Enough to see inside. And what I saw wasn't what I expected. Not bones. Not relics. Not some cursed object. Just a pile of torn letters. Dozens. All addressed to Lena. All signed by Mark. Apologies. Confessions. Desperate, broken words. He tried to make it right. Too late. Too quiet. And this house, this place, had held all of it in its walls. Now it was out. Now it was done. I backed away, heart heavy, head spinning. I wasn't afraid anymore. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just Lena's story, or Mark's. It was the story of a secret that refused to stay buried. A truth that waited for someone to listen. And somehow, that someone was me. I climbed out of that cellar slowly, like I was rising from something deeper than just the ground. My legs felt heavy, like the truth I'd uncovered had weight. When I shut the trapdoor, it stayed closed. No more cold air seeping through. No more whispers crawling up from the dark. I didn't bother putting the rug back. Let it stay uncovered. Let the house remember. The silence was different now. Not empty, peaceful. The pictures on the wall didn't feel like they were watching me anymore. They were just photos again. Memories. I stood in the living room for a moment, not ready to leave. Not yet. I glanced at the window where her message once appeared. There was nothing there now, but I remembered it clearly. You brought me back. Maybe that's exactly what I'd done. Brought her truth back into the light. Brought her back just long enough to let her go. I walked to the front door, hand on the knob. It opened easily this time. No resistance. No slam. Just the soft night waiting outside. I stepped out onto the porch. The air felt lighter, cleaner. Somewhere in the trees, an owl called. The world had moved on, while I was trapped in someone else's past. And yet, I felt different, like I wasn't walking away alone. I looked back at the house one last time. The windows reflected the moonlight. Still quiet, but for the briefest second, I swear I saw her, standing in the window upstairs. Not sad, not lost, just watching. And then, gone. No flicker, no vanishing. Gone. I walked to my car, started the engine. As I pulled away from the house, I didn't look back again, because some things, once they're at peace, you leave them there. And I had done what I came to do, even if I never meant to. Chapter 13. ChatGPT said, the drive back was quiet. No music, no talking, just the steady hum of the engine and the long, dark road stretching ahead. I didn't see another car for miles. Only my headlights cutting through the night, and the occasional rustle of trees bending in the wind. But something felt different. In me, around me. I kept glancing at the passenger seat. Empty, of course it was. But it hadn't been. Not really. That night, when I first saw her on the side of the road, I thought I was helping a stranger. I know. She found me. She didn't need a ride. She needed a witness. And now that I'd seen everything, now that I knew, I couldn't unknow it. The house. That pain. That truth sealed beneath floorboards and behind broken photo frames. It lived in me now. I pulled into my driveway just past midnight. Cut the engine. The silence that followed felt almost too loud. My house looked normal. Too normal. Lights still off. Porch light buzzing softly. But I sat there in the car, still gripping the wheel. That feeling of being watched. It hadn't left. Not fear. Presence. I reached into the glove compartment, pulled out the journal I brought back. Lena's. I hadn't meant to take it. I just couldn't leave it there. Not after everything. I opened it to that one page again. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. He said no one would believe me. He said this house would keep my secret forever. But it didn't. Not anymore. And suddenly, I knew what I had to do. This couldn't just sit in a box. Couldn't fade like the writing on a fogged-up window. It had to be told. I wasn't haunted. Not exactly. But I was changed. And I had a feeling. Her story wasn't finished yet. Not until the world heard it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, standing at the edge of the road, sitting silently beside me, fading into the night outside that house. Lena wasn't just a ghost. She was a voice that had been ignored, a truth buried under fear, shame, and silence. And now it was mine to carry. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to keep this quiet. Not like Mark did. Not like the house tried to. I opened my laptop, created a blank document. Title, The Silent Passenger. And then I started to write. Everything. From the moment I saw her on that empty road, to the photo in the living room, the journal, the truth about what Mark did, and what he didn't do. The kind of story that sounds made up. The kind people scroll past. Until they feel it. Until they realize it could be real. I included everything. Even the parts that made me sound crazy. Even the parts one didn't understand. Because the truth doesn't need to be tidy. It just needs to be told. I posted it. Didn't think twice. Didn't care if people believed it. That wasn't the point. This wasn't about me. It was about her. And if even one person read her story and felt something, then maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. A few hours passed. Then the comments started. Some were jokes. Some were angry. But a few were different. Someone wrote, I've driven that same road. I saw a woman once too. Thought I imagined her. Another said, I remember that house. It was in the papers a long time ago. People said it was cursed. And one more, thank you for saying what no one else would. That's when I knew. Lena wasn't just a ghost from the past. She was every voice that was never heard. Every truth that got buried because it was inconvenient. She wasn't haunting people. She was waiting for someone who would listen. Really listen. And somehow, that person was me. I don't know why, but I don't question it anymore. Some stories find you for a reason, and some voices, won't rest until they're finally heard. It's been a few weeks since I told Lena's story. Since I drove down that lonely road and picked up a passenger who never said a word, but told me everything. The post I wrote spread further than I ever expected. People shared it, commented, argued about whether it was real. Some sent me messages, stories of their own, stories they'd never told anyone. I didn't realize how many people were carrying ghosts, how many silent passengers were still waiting to be seen. I kept driving that road some nights, not because I wanted to see her again, but because part of me needed to know she was really gone, at peace. And every time, the road was empty, quiet, just like it should be. No shadows, no flickers, just stars overhead and trees swaying gently, as if the night was finally resting. Sometimes I stop by the house. It looks different now. Not darker, but quieter. There's a stillness to it that feels clean. Like the storm passed, and the damage was done, but the air is fresh again. I don't go inside. I don't need to. I already know what was hiding in there. And so does the world now. That's enough. People still ask me if I'm making it up, if it was all just a story. I always smile. And I always say, some truths don't need to be believed. They just need to be remembered. And Lena? She'll never be forgotten again. Not by me. Not by the people who read her story. Not by anyone who drives that road and feels something they can't explain. Maybe she was waiting for someone like me. Or maybe I was the one who needed her. Either way, the silence is over. And she is no longer just a passenger. She's the reason I keep listening to every quiet voice, every cold wind, every shadow that doesn't quite belong. Because sometimes, the loudest stories are the ones never spoken out loud. And now that I've heard hers, I'll never stop listening. Some stories don't end. They echo. They follow you in the quiet moments, when you're alone, when the world is still. Lena's story did that to me. What started as a simple act, offering a stranger a ride, became a journey I never could have imagined. She never spoke a word, but somehow she told me everything. Through silence, through shadows, through the weight of a truth buried too long. And now, I understand something I didn't before. Ghosts don't always haunt houses. Sometimes they haunt memory, regret, silence. But when we choose to listen, really listen, they find peace. This story isn't about the supernatural. It's about justice. It's about being believed. It's about the courage it takes to speak, and the kindness it takes to hear. I don't know why Lena chose me, but I'm grateful she did, because in helping her be seen, I started to see things differently too. So if you ever find yourself on a quiet road, and you pass someone who looks lost, alone, maybe stop, maybe listen, because you never know whose story is waiting to be told. And sometimes, just sometimes, you might be the only one who can tell it.